My final project on the NECC compounding pharmacy and what all occurred because of it. I was drawn to do this because it all kind of occurred during my senior year, and I ended up writing my senior English paper over this when it first happened. I want to do like more refresher type project because I assume there'd be more information out there based off of testimonies of people that decided to come forward that worked in the pharmacy and whatnot, based on like new information and testimonies of like previous employees. Like we can see that like a greedy business owner is at the forefront of this case as he turned like the compounding pharmacy, which was supposed to be more an individualized type operation, he turned it into a manufacturing business of sorts and aimed this at stuffing his pockets and not about the safety of the products.
Last fall, 17,000 vials of a steroid were shipped to clinics and hospitals in 23 states. The drug had to be sterile because patients would have it injected into their joints or their spines to relieve chronic pain. What happened next is the worst pharmaceutical disaster in decades. The steroid was contaminated with fungus. 48 people have been killed. 720 are being treated for persistent fungal infections. The tragedy has exposed a failure in drug safety, and in a moment, you will hear the commissioner of the FDA acknowledge that she can no longer guarantee the safety of many high-risk drugs.
What we can see from this chart of the states is just how many different areas were actually affected by the outbreak. Michigan obviously was the most affected. We had 264 individual cases. Tennessee had 153 cases. I mean, it was mainly around the East Coast, which makes sense since the New England compounding facility would ship locally, but it also shipped to places like Texas as they had their few cases. So it's a very widespread area that is targeted from this outbreak.
This is the fungus. It is a sample that has been grown from the spinal fluid of a patient. The fungus is a form of mold that attacks bone and nerves. The patients who had it injected in the spine have an infection called meningitis, which can also reach the brain.
Compounding pharmacies are not to manufacture products for the masses under our current laws. Each order is made specifically for one patient. That is what makes these pharmacies unique, is that there must be a prescription for each patient order that is created. It's like this because like certain instances, if like a person can't swallow pills, they will have a liquid substitute created. Because the FDA does not monitor these compounding pharmacies, it was up to the Massachusetts Board of Pharmacy to do that, and they actually passed all inspections. However, it's unknown if they really understood just how close this pharmacy was to this construction waste area and just how many problems it could actually occur.
They would occasionally find mold in the clean room.
Occasionally, yes.
How often?
I would say maybe a dozen times in 3 years we would find it.
He told us they would clean up and keep moving, but a month before the first steroid death, he says he warned his supervisor.
Something's going to happen, something's going to get missed, and we're going to get shut down.
What did you mean by that?
We were going to hurt a patient. We were just thinking hurt a patient. We weren't compounding anymore, we were manufacturing.
As mandated by the law, each and every prescription that was created by the NECC had to have a name attached to it. So in an interview with a former salesman involved in this procedure, he tells just exactly how the company skated around this, and that way they could manufacture at a much higher rate while still, in a sense, providing a prescription for each and every individual person.
The law required NECC to have a name on a prescription, so clinics provided names. Any names.
Bart Simpson, Homer Simpson, those ones did raise red flags, and we told to call our client back and say, hey, give us different names, and follow-up names would be like a John Doe, Jane Doe, Bill Doe, Jane Smith, Bill Smith, etc.
These weren't real people.
As far as I know, how many Jane Does and John Does do you know?
Barry Cadden was the NECC founder, and when subpoenaed, refused to speak based on his constitutional rights. Cadden, along with his colleagues, claimed to have absolutely no idea how the steroids became contaminated with the fungal meningitis, even though the intake for their ventilation shaft rested less than 100 feet from the recycling plant that he also owned. Also, Cadden, along with his partners, withdrew. So what can we do to prevent this? Cadden wanted to make money and line his pockets, and effectively was able to do so. He did his best to cover his tracks and avoid liability. Employees were a part of this too. You saw how the ones were covering it up. At different times he asked the sales team to not come in just so they didn't have to answer questions. So can we put the blame all on him? I don't think so. I mean, you can only put so much blame on the individual person and instead be able to put the blame on the people that were actually partaking in this cover-up. But I mean, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? I mean, what could prevent this happening from any other local pharmacy or any other compounding pharmacy? I mean, we could try to require an inspector to be stationed at each pharmacy at all times, or do routine weekly checks or monthly checks or whatever it is. There's no best way to approach the situation. Barry Cadden knowingly put people in harm's way, and now he's be held responsible for his actions, which is what is going on as he's being subpoenaed by the grand jury because of the hundreds of injured and the over 50 that have been killed because of his selfish greed.
Margaret Hamburg, commissioner of the FDA, now wants Congress to return authority over compounding pharmacies to her agency.
We need clear, strong, consistent federal standards that will be applied across the board, all 50 states. We need to be able to go in and inspect these facilities and get access to all of the information that we need.
What are the chances of this happening again?
I'm sad to say that if we do not put in place the comprehensive legislation that really defines roles and responsibilities, we will have other similar problems.